All right, good afternoon. Happy to be back with you guys all virtually. Before we start my briefing, I wanted to invite our guest, Najat Rochdi, who is the humanitarian coordinator for Lebanon, and she's joining us from Beirut. I know Najat's been very busy coordinating all the humanitarian work the UN is currently doing, and she's got a couple of engagements later this afternoon, so I don't want to waste any time. And I just want to welcome Najat to this briefing. So Najat, please go ahead. You'll make some opening remarks and then we'll take some questions. Najat, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon for this, and thank you for this opportunity. I just want to start, to share with you actually how I felt myself, because yes, I am the humanitarian coordinator, but at the same time, I am someone who was in Beirut and was there as a witness. I just arrived actually to Lebanon on 1st of August. So I arrived like 3 days before. And I started my duty on 1st of August on Saturday. And the day of the blast, I was I had to stay in confinement because we had to observe 5 days of confinement. And I was sitting in my living room and I left like 2 minutes after I left my living room. All of a sudden, I heard this boom, this terrible, terrible sound. I don't know if one can imagine what it is to hear that, and it's not even about me. It's about the children who were in this building. It's about the children everywhere. And all of a sudden, all the glass, the windows, the doors of my apartment, all blown out, completely, boom, really. And of course, I immediately left the apartment, and when leaving, I met with all the neighbors, screaming, crying, some with a lot of blood, and not even understanding what was going on. Everybody was shocked. Really, everybody was shocked. We all tried actually to explain to each other, and I tried mainly really to ask them to calm down, because just panicking was not really the answer. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is just to tell you that every single person actually in Beirut that day was really shocked by what's happened. So it has been now a week ago, but I can tell you I am still hearing this sound in my ears. I still hear it, when I think about it. But like so many others around the world, I have been deeply shocked by the devastation. And it was even harder and tougher when actually I visited last week the port of Beirut after the blast. And I really could not find any word to describe the pain I felt inside. The apocalyptic landscape I had in front of me is just, yeah. I visited Beirut before, a beautiful city, a city of fun, a city of generosity, a city of hospitality. And now this city, you see destruction everywhere. So you get out to the street, near the port in Ashrafiyeh or Hazmiyeh or Jmeizeh. Yes, you feel immediately your heart broken. And you look around, and I met with a lot of people, and you look around, and it's about pain of the families for their loss. And so many lost their loved ones and still searching for their loved ones. I mean, even though I am afraid there is very little hope now to find anyone alive under the debris. I could not find more words. So my first thought is really to again send my profound condolences to the families and those killed, and heartfelt wishes to those injured for the quick recovery. I went to the hospital, I visited some colleagues, but of course the families were in the corridor, and it's their pain is not only because they lost a loved one. Their pain is also because they want to understand what happened exactly. The explosion of the port of Beirut, as you all know, so far claimed up to 200 people. 1,000 more have been injured. Entire neighborhoods, vibrant historic streets of shops, restaurants, cafes, and other small businesses were shattered beyond recognition in like this. Over 120 schools were damaged, as were 15 medical facilities, including 3 hospitals. Thousands of homes were also lost, leaving many displaced. The scale of the loss is so vast that it is likely that every single person in Lebanon has been touched by this terrible event, and even beyond, because the diaspora also has been touched. We must also recognize that the explosion was yet another cruel blow to a country already reeling from an unprecedented economic and financial crisis. Critical infrastructure was already under pressure. This year, poverty and unemployment in Lebanon have soared. Lengthy power cuts have been a part of daily life, and I experienced that myself. Increasing numbers of families could not afford food, and even more now. Cases of COVID-19 were already spiking just prior to the blast, and in past day, Lebanon has registered daily record of numbers of the virus cases. Nearly 300 new cases and 4 new deaths due to the coronavirus was announced just yesterday. This was already a country under enormous strain. As we have mourned all that has been lost, I have also been heartened by the compassion and collective action and the solidarity between the people of Lebanon. I have seen families opening their homes and their hearts, to those who were just losing their houses and asking them to come in and to host them. As I joined other United Nations staff last week to volunteer in a street cleanup, I saw firsthand the wreckage, but I also saw hope and resilience. I was deeply moved by the determination and the strength of the people of Lebanon, who came together in their thousands to selflessly assist each other and come to the aid of those in need. The United Nations has long stood in solidarity with the people of Lebanon. Today, I am reaffirming that steadfast commitment. In one of their darkest moments, the people of Lebanon have asked for our assistance, and they must receive it. Much has already been done. From that very evening of 4th of August, the United Nations, along its partners, immediately mobilized to address the most urgent needs, life-saving and support to the national response. An emergency operations cell with representatives from United Nations, local and international NGOs, Red Cross, Red Crescent movement, and operational donors was immediately activated. Within hours, crucial emergency teams were deployed to Beirut, including emergency medical teams to support the ongoing medical response, a UN disaster assessment and coordination UNDAC team to support coordinated response operations, 14 urban search and rescue teams from 11 countries under the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group, the INSARAG network, to support the search for survivors, and other specialized teams, including engineers and environmental experts. Alongside this action, the United Nations also quickly coordinated and worked with partners to alleviate immediate suffering. This included support for rapid assessment of damage on hospitals and primary health care, with the support of emergency medical teams, assistance for more than 1,000 trauma cases, and more than 1,000 surgical interventions were provided. Medical equipment and supplies, including PPEs, were rapidly procured, and medicines and supplies from the damaged warehouses were relocated. To reach some of the most vulnerable, mobile medical units were deployed immediately. In addition, shelter kits, in addition to hygiene and baby kits, continued to be distributed. working alongside local NGOs and CSOs who have been operating street kitchens and delivering hot meals. WFP has allocated an additional 5,000 food parcels for families affected by the blast. Water tracking and dislodging is ongoing, as are assessments in coordination with authorities to better understand the impact on essential infrastructure. The United Nations also supported the reunification of children separated from their families. ICRC continued to assist the search for missing loved ones. Importantly, psychological support has been offered to support survivors. Financial support has also been made available in record time. I want to mention that I released 9 million from the Lebanese Humanitarian Fund, and the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator Malokok has also released an additional 6 million from the Central Emergency Fund, from the SURF. And we are already starting allocating that to the priority sectors that we identified in consultation with the partners, but also with the government. These funds will prioritize urgent support to the health sector, including hospital capacity and trauma care, in addition to shelter assistance for the most vulnerable, logistical support, and WASH. I also welcome the rapid action by donors yesterday at the International Conference on Assistance and Support to Beirut and the Lebanese people, co-organized by President Macron and the Secretary General. In addition to other supports we have seen this past week, including from member states in the region, I am encouraged by this early show of commitment and solidarity by the international community to Lebanon. It is desperately needed. Lebanon has for years demonstrated their generosity towards significant refugee population, including 1.5 million from Syria and 20,000 from Palestine, and we must respond in turn. A preliminary assessment by OCHA has determined that we need to address immediate response now and over the next 3 months. While assessments are ongoing, identified initial priority needs include assistance to help sustain emergency, intensive and specialized healthcare, shelter and expansion of protection assistance, including counseling and psychological support, support to basic water and sanitation, assistance to enable education activities to resume, and support to ease growing food insecurity among the most vulnerable. The assessment we have done, we are left only with 4 weeks of wheat and grain, and if we don't get immediately some additional and some wheat and grain coming to the country, then we will enter into a very serious food insecurity situation. I emphasize this is just the initial humanitarian support that is required. It is imperative that immediate humanitarian relief quickly transitions into recovery and reconstruction, and eventually to longer-term economic recovery. I have already touched upon the significant and growing socio-economic pressures faced by the people of Lebanon before the blast. Support to Lebanon economic recovery is now more crucial than ever. It will require substantial, coordinated and long-term international support, as well as very concrete and important reforms that should be conducted by the government itself. For many families in Lebanon, this tragic event represents a tipping point. The United Nations and its partners are determined to stand by these families and to do whatever it can to help the most vulnerable have a better future. We want the Lebanese to go back on their feet. We don't want them to stay in humanitarian assistance forever. I encourage and urge donors to continue to be generous, to ensure that no one is left behind, and that the Lebanese and the Beirut people know that they are not alone. Over to you, Stéphane.
Thank you very much, Najat, for that briefing and those very stark observations. We have a few questions. Nabil, please go ahead. Nabil? All right, we'll come back to you, Nabil. Ibtisam Azam, go ahead, Ibtisam.
Thank you, Steph. Welcome back. Thank you, Najat. And my question is, you talked about the aid that the UN is providing. And my question is, before the explosion and the last accident, Lebanese were actually very critical of their government due to corruption and other stuff. So the question is, how do you want to make sure that the aid that you are getting and is going actually to the right people? And do you or are you able to monitor other aid operation, or you are just working and monitoring your own aid operations? Thank you.
Go ahead, Najat.
Thank you very much. I am very much aware of this, what I call the trust deficit that exists from before. As United Nations, anyway, we always monitor very closely the use, the way we are delivering the aid. And we are always very keen to be very transparent, obviously. We have to work with the local authorities and the national authorities on the ground, but it does not mean that we are channeling our aid through them. We are committed to ensuring that all those in need and the most vulnerable actually are getting the assistance. And we have put in place really very rigorous mechanism and tools for us to be to be very transparent and to monitor the delivery of the aid. There a lot of personnel has been have been surged to us to help us exactly with also that. Just to give you an example, for the food distribution, it's not that we are relying on the government or the local authorities to provide us with the list of the people we should serve, but we rather have our own teams really conducting the needs assessment and coming up with those lists. Of course, we are relying a lot on the local NGOs. We are relying a lot on the partners, and we are coordinating with the authorities, but with making sure that every single dollar we are spending is really going to those who are most in need. Over.
Yes. We hope we can see Mrs. Rochdi again on the screen, because I'm recording this, and it's very important to see you for my TV coverage. Thank you again. Thanks so much. So now we see that tens of countries and parties are donating money and aids to Lebanon. Is this going to be organized and maybe delivered through the UN system? Can you please give us some details about what is the UN going to do to collect these donations and pledges? I have more questions, maybe I'll ask later. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabil. We're not, bilateral aid already arrived to Lebanon, the second day of the blast. And some donors have decided actually to do it directly with the authorities, with their local authorities, or with the government itself. So we are not involved in this delivery. But those donors who decided actually to channel the aid through United Nations, yes, we will be coordinating. Not when we will be actually at the airport, also to channel this aid and dispatch it. We are working on a mapping of the needs, but also of the gaps, and we will be coming up with what we call the 3W, who is doing what, so we avoid all duplications. And yes, through our teams and our partners, we will be monitoring very closely and delivering the aid. In some cases, we will have to also coordinate with the army, because, in many places, the national army is the one who took over, for that. But in all cases, we will make sure that this is reaching the people in need. For example, France has already announced that the aid will go through United Nations. UK has announced that the aid will go through United Nations. I am meeting today with US. So we are organizing ourselves as we hear from the donors. I hope that addressed your concern. Over.
Nabil, I will come back to you because Najat needs to go at 12:30, and I want to get some more questions in. Toby and then Edie. Toby, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks very much. What is your reaction to the resignation of the Lebanese government today? And does this affect humanitarian operations? If so, how? Thank you.
I'm really focusing all my energy and my capacity to address the life-saving, I did not follow, frankly, today, to be very frank with you. I was in meetings with the Humanitarian, with the NGOs, and I was meeting some of the community leaders. I will turn to Stéphane to address that. We are, of course, concerned, but frankly, I don't have all the details, so it's very difficult for me to address this question. Over.
I'll come back to that during the briefing on the political end. Edie?
Thank you very much, Ms. Rochdi. And on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, thank you for doing this briefing. And as Nabil said, we certainly hope that you'll come back often. Having listened to a lot of the speeches this morning, I know you met with David Beasley, the head of the World Food Program, who was touring the port. Did you go with him? Do you have any sense of how the UN is going to be able to bring it, aside from by air? He was talking about maybe opening up part of the port. What's your assessment? And also, what is your assessment of the bread supply?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good to see you. I mean, we met in my previous life as HC in other countries, so very good to see you again. And I will be very happy to come to this noon briefing as often as Stéphane will invite me. So it's on his shoulder. Yes, I mean, I went to the port before. I was not with David Beasley today. I mean, I had to deal with other issues. They had their engineers with them, and they did the first assessment about what would be the footprint, and where actually we could rehabilitate part of the capacity of the port. They have done that. They are very optimistic to be able to start actually this rehabilitation as soon as this week for the port, to increase the capacity of the port of Beirut, because relying only on the port of Tripoli is not good enough. Thinking that we can fly in everything and all the supplies we need and the food and all the construction material by air is not realistic neither. So the earliest the port of Beirut is rehabilitated, best it is. So they are really working around the clock really to try to fix it as soon as possible. I know that they are working very closely also with the port authorities to move very quickly on that. My understanding is that there is already a ship coming on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, with some initial construction material, and another one with wheat and grain, exactly to address the issue of food security and to hopefully make sure that Beirut is not going to be short of bread. Over.
Thank you. Abdelhamid?
Thank you. This is Abdelhamid Sayam from Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Alhamdulillah as-salama, Najat. Inshallah, we will see you more often. My question, Najat, can you hear me?
Yes. Shukran, Abdelhamid. Tfaddal.
My question is about the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, how affected they were with this blast. And what about the operations of UNRWA in Lebanon? Had it been also affected? Are the UNRWA also seeking some help or some parts of the donation that given to Lebanon? With some of these donations will reach UNRWA? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abdelhamid. I mean, just to reassure you, we had 2 Palestinian refugees who had really slight injuries. So, alhamdulillah, there is not, they have not been impacted that much. The office of UNRWA has been, of course, impacted like others, but they are still operational. So from that point of view, I mean, UNRWA, unlike other UN agencies, they did not have the same damage than other UN agencies, which actually offices are completely out of order. So we are just trying to come up with some backup solutions for everybody to still work. Whatever pledge and whatever funding for this response will go directly to the victims of the blast. I mean, regardless of their status. So in that response, it's not about refugee or this or that. It's really that whoever was affected by the blast and is in need of assistance according to the priority sectors we identified is entitled to this support. So it's not planned to channel part of it to UNRWA or part of it to UNHCR. If there is something, if there is an activity that is going to call on UNRWA actually support, yes, funding will go to them. But that's not the way we are channeling and allocating the funds. Over.
Thank you. Samira Sadek. Okay, Pam Falk, CBS News.
Thank you, Stéphane. And thank you, Najat. And I apologize not for having video today. My question is, a lot of aid is going in from the different UN agencies. We saw David Beasley this morning, Mardini from ICRC is there, and we just heard from Filippo Grande that he's going tomorrow. Could you give us a little sense of who goes where is being coordinated, just to be able to explain to people how the UN is coordinating all these efforts, who's at the port, who's not, who's making the decisions? Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I have activated an emergency cell, and that way is really to bring those who are directly involved in the response together. And those who are sitting in the emergency cells are really the sectors, but also some donors and representative of national NGOs and international NGOs who are directly involved in the response. And this is where, and I have an HCT, a humanitarian country team meeting once every 2 days. So this is where we are making all the decisions in terms of priorities. When David Beasley comes here, when Filippo Grandi comes here, and when any principal comes here, it's really actually to support what was already identified as a priority. And for us, it's great because we have a high-level visit, and therefore this is also shedding light on the crisis in Lebanon. I was really shocked when I heard some of the people telling me that, why are you actually putting in place all this response? Lebanese people, they are all wealthy, and Beirut, they don't need anything. Well, they are wrong. I can tell you there are a lot of very poor areas. The social and economic crisis has actually really worsened the situation. And there are so many people who are vulnerable people who have been affected by the blast. So whatever we do goes really to very vulnerable people. We are very serious and very keen in making sure that's the way we are channeling the humanitarian assistance and delivering it. And as humanitarian coordinator, that's the way it works in the humanitarian assistance. If there is a need for someone to make the final decision, trust me, I will make it. Over.
Excellent. The last question will go to Iftikhar. I know you have to go to a meeting with a donor. We don't want you to be late because we want you to get the money. So Iftikhar, please go ahead and then we'll do the briefing.
Iftikhar Ali from Associated Press of Pakistan. According to UN calculations, the aid that is coming in from member states is coming in and is still coming in. Is that enough to deal with the devastation in Beirut, or do you need to issue a special appeal to raise funds?
Thank you very much. I mean, we started with what we had in the beginning, and we welcome really the generosity of all the donors. We are definitely planning to issue a flash appeal, mainly because, we had to come up with the more comprehensive needs assessment. Needs are changing every day because obviously in the first 2 days, we had really to focus on the medical support and on the shelters as a life-saving actually aid. Now we have, with the surge we are getting, from different headquarters, we have already organized ourselves for the needs assessment. We started 2 days ago, and we should be able to have a better idea about the humanitarian needs like tomorrow, after tomorrow. And this is done, it's an interagency needs assessment. It is done with the national NGOs and with the international NGOs, and it's really to factor in the immediate response, which we hope won't go beyond 3 months. Whatever is related to reconstruction, of course, is not factored in the needs assessment we sent so far, but we will be working also, I am humanitarian coordinator, but also resident coordinator, and therefore addressing the recovery and reconstruction is something we'll start doing at, very quickly with the World Bank, because that will be also needed very soon to make sure, again, that we will give the opportunity and the tools and the support to the Lebanese people to get back on their feet, and to make sure that humanitarian assistance is not going to last for too long. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the questions, but you need to run, so go and get some more funds. And we very much hope to have you back here maybe next week or in a few days to give us an update. And please, all our solidarity to you and to all our colleagues in Beirut. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. Thanks to all of you, and counting on you to convey the message of solidarity, please. We need everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Najat.
Thank you. All right. I can try to take some more Lebanon questions as part of the briefing anyway, but I wanted to let you know on the political front that we have seen the reports regarding the changes in the Lebanese government. It's our understanding that the Prime Minister is set to address the Lebanese people a bit later today, so we may have a bit more later or tomorrow on the political situation. I think, as the Secretary General said in his remarks this morning, Lebanon is going through a very difficult period, but it's a resilient country, it's resilient people, it has immense spirit, and we at the UN will continue to support Lebanon in every way possible through the current emergency and in these difficult times. Staying on Lebanon, as you saw, the Secretary General this morning briefed member states on the situation there. He expressed his total solidarity with the people of Lebanon in the aftermath of the horrific explosion. He offered his condolences to the families and the loved ones of all those who were killed, and a full recovery to the many thousands who were injured. The Secretary General, in his remark, called for robust international support for all people in need in Lebanon, especially women and girls who are most vulnerable in any time of crisis. He urged donors to give speedily and generously, and he recalled that yesterday's conference in support of Beirut, which was co-chaired by the United Nations and the French government, generated much needed financial support and reaffirmed the commitment of Lebanon's many partners, including world leaders, international humanitarian organizations, and key multilateral and regional financial institutions. He added that we are assessing the results and are committed to a quick and effective follow-up. And as you know, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, represented the UN during that briefing, the conference on Sunday, excuse me. Turning to the situation in Belarus, I can tell you that the Secretary General continues to follow with great concern the ongoing situation in that country, including reports of post-election protests and violence overnight in the capital, Minsk, as well as other cities. The Secretary General calls on Belarusian authorities to show maximum restraint and to ensure full respect for the rights of freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. He emphasizes the importance of its citizens exercising their rights peacefully and in accordance with the law. The Secretary General urges all relevant actors to avoid actions that would further inflame tensions and to approach the issues in the spirit of dialogue. And turning to Yemen and the ongoing issue with the tanker, I think the tragedy that we saw in Beirut last week only underscores the urgency of resolving the ongoing threat posed by the Safer oil tanker, which is anchored off the coast of Yemen. The aging vessel is carrying more than 1 million barrels of oil and has almost no maintenance since 2015. 2 months ago, seawater began leaking into the engine room, which could have destabilized and sunk the entire vessel, potentially releasing all of the oil into the Red Sea. A temporary fix was applied, but it's unclear how long that might last. A major spill would be catastrophic for the environment and would destroy livelihoods of coastal communities in Yemen. Most of the oil would likely wash up on Yemen's west coast in areas controlled by Ansar Allah. As you will recall, on July 14th last month, the UN submitted an official request to Ansar Allah to undertake an assessment and initial repair mission to the Safer tanker. We are in contact with the authorities on this and urge them to expedite the necessary procedures so this work can begin. Turning to Niger, as you will have seen, 8 people, including 6 aid workers, were killed in a brutal armed attack yesterday in Kouré, 60 kilometers east of the capital Niamey. 2 of them were from Niger, a driver and a guide. The 6 aid workers were from the French international NGO Acted Niger. The staff from Acted had recently arrived in Niamey and had just completed their 14-day quarantine. The group was visiting the Kouré Giraffe Park when they were shot and their car set ablaze. The Secretary General condemns this brutal killing, and he expresses his deepest condolences to the bereaved families, as well as to the government and people of Niger and France. The Secretary General calls on the Nigerian authorities to spare no effort in identifying and swiftly bringing the perpetrators of this heinous crime to justice. And you will have seen that yesterday the Secretary General had a message to the Nagasaki Peace Memorial Ceremony on the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombing of the city. The Secretary General noted that sadly, 3/4 of a century after Nagasaki was incinerated by an atomic bomb, the nuclear menace is once again on the rise. He said that the historic progress in nuclear disarmament is in jeopardy as the web of instruments and agreements designed to reduce the danger of nuclear weapons and bring about their elimination is crumbling. This alarming trend must be reversed, the Secretary General underscored, and he added that 75 years is far too long for not to have learned the lessons of the nuclear horror and Hibakusha. The Secretary General further emphasized that once more there can be no more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasakis. His message was delivered by Izumi Nakamitsu, who, as you know, is the UN High Representative for Disarmament Affairs and who was present there. Returning to the African continent, the humanitarian coordinator ad interim in Cameroon, Siti Batul Hussein, strongly condemned the killing of an aid worker in the northwest region of the country. A staff member of the Community Initiative for Sustainable Development, an implementing partner for several UN agencies, was kidnapped from his home on Friday and later killed by unidentified armed individuals. This killing is the latest in a series of attacks, violent extortion, and harassment against humanitarians in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon. And it comes barely a month after the killing of a community health worker in the southwest region. The UN mission in the Democratic Republic, the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is concerned about the escalation of intercommunal violence in several areas of South Kivu province. Violent clashes between armed groups and the country's armed forces, as well as attacks against civilians in the region of the Haut Plateau in South Kivu, including villages and camps of the displaced, have left at least 128 dead between February and June. The head of the UN mission, Leila Zerougi, said that violence is neither a viable option, let alone a solution to resolve grievances that may exist between communities. With the support of the UN, the defense and security forces from the DRC deployed in the region have stepped up efforts to neutralize armed groups involved in the attacks and ensure the protection of civilian population. And particularly, sites for displaced people. And an update from our team in Mauritius, where there are more than 300 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 10 deaths. Our team there, led by the resident coordinator, Christine Mutoni, has been working with our partners to respond to the pandemic. WHO is supporting the Ministry of Health on technical matters and to implement a system to share information in real time. Also there, a state of environmental emergency was declared on the 7th of August after a ship ran aground and began spilling oil. The UN team has been mobilizing in full emergency mode to support local authorities and is coordinating with international development and partners and civil society organizations. The UN agencies are providing rapid on-site expertise, including technical support for the assessment of the impact of the oil spill, as well as on public health, support for vulnerable people, and forensic investigations. The UN team in Mauritius is working closely with other UN offices in the region, including the UN Environment Programme and the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. And from South Sudan, our colleagues there say that their engineering troops, together with local youth, are working to repair levees damaged by flooding in Bor in Jonglei State. This swift action has helped to save the main market and Jonglei's only hospital from being submerged. A temporary drainage system was also created to steer water from the overflowing White Nile River away from critical roads and from the town. Some 135,000 people are believed to be displaced across Bor due to the flooding. And today, our friends in Geneva, the World Health Organization, our friends at WHO and the Iraqi Ministry of Health kickstarted the second phase of a COVID-19 awareness raising campaign in high-risk areas of Thirkar and Misan, south of Baghdad. Later in the month, the campaign, whose theme is "Your Health is Important," will be rolled out to governorates of Basra, Wasit, and to Sulaymaniyah, north of Baghdad. And the International Organization for Migration and the International Chamber of Commerce today released employer guidance for measures to protect migrants during the COVID-19 pandemic. The guidance includes a set of general principles for employers, such as treating all workers with equality, dignity, and respect, notwithstanding their gender or migratory status. IOM noted that migrant workers are susceptible to job loss, salary cuts, and various health and safety concerns. Apart from being far away from family and support networks, they face language and cultural barriers, as well as a lack of social protection, and many of them suffer from discrimination. In addition, overseas economies that rely on remittances for migrant workers face a steep decline in those cross-border cash flows. And lastly, but not least, this morning during an in-person council session on Guinea-Bissau, the head of the UN peacebuilding mission, Rosine Sori-Koulibaly, said that with the dire health infrastructure and limited resources, the country is in a particularly fragile situation to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. With the mission scheduled to close at the end of the year, the special representative said that Guinea-Bissau needs to remain high on international community's agenda with a focus on reforms and strengthening of state institutions. She said that the recent political crisis linked to the electoral dispute highlighted the structural weaknesses of the country. Regretfully, therefore, Ms. Koulibaly added that the mission's mandate is unlikely to be fully implemented before its departure. Coordination with the UN country team of the transition is ongoing, she said. She also called for more contributions to the Peacebuilding Fund to help ensure long-term sustainable support for the implementation of the peacebuilding priorities that remain crucial. And her remarks were shared with you, and we expect the President's Security Council to speak at the stakeout before the meeting is over. All right, I think that's it from me. Okay. Let's go to Samira. You had a question. Samira?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Good to see you. Steph, so my question is regarding both Lebanon as well as the report that just came out about migrant workers. And migrant workers in Lebanon have already been a vulnerable community for a long time, even before the blast, especially under the coronavirus situation. So do you know of any measures that are being taken, especially for that community in Lebanon?
Well, I think Najat was very clear in saying that the needs of people will be assessed on the needs of as individuals. The aid will go to individual, regardless of their status as a refugee, a migrant, and so forth. In his remarks this morning, the Secretary General also said that it was very important to take a look at the needs of the most vulnerable population. So I think this is something that we will very much be focused on, and making sure that all those who need help get help, especially those who may be living in the shadows. Okay, sorry, Evelyn, you had a question, and then Abdel Saham. Evelyn? All right, Abdel Hamid, go ahead.
Thank you, Stéphane. On Friday morning, in the city of Jenin, a mother woke up to give bottle to her infant. The Israeli army shot her through the window and killed her in her own house. She's 23-year-old. Her name is Dalia Smoudi, and that is spelled S-M-O-U-D-I, because every time I give a name, it comes out in the text completely wrong. So not only I am really wondering why Mr. Mladinov did not issue a statement, but I really compare that to a statement he made when a settler was killed, when he mentioned her name, her parents, her age, and he condemned it with the strongest term. This is a woman with an infant in her own house. In early hours of the morning, she was shot through the window. Why he did not say one word on that, and if he gonna mention something about it. I looked at his Twitter and there was nothing of that kind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was not personally aware of the case, but we will look into it and I will come back to you. Maria Krenova. Maria?
Yeah, hi, Steph. I had a question regarding Belarus. You mentioned the protests there, but do you have a comment on the election itself? Because the opposition claims that there were massive frauds and that the real election results could be quite different. Was you in touch with international observers maybe? And in your opinion, how credible are these elections?
Listen, I have no further comment on the election. As I think we've been telling you guys, we had no involvement in the organizing of the election or coordinating observers or so on. So we have no. At this point, we have no mandate to make a comment on the handling of the mechanics, shall we say, of the election. That is not stopping the Secretary General from being concerned about what we're seeing. The reports of the post-election protests, the violence that we saw in Minsk and other cities, which is of concern to him. Okay. Nabil, do you have a question? Okay, I think he's texting me the question. The question was about the issue of an investigation into what happened in Lebanon. I would refer you to the comments made in the communication by the conference yesterday for that was co-hosted by the United Nations and by France and agreed to by the participants, which is the need for credible and transparent investigation. And of course, we stand ready to assist should there be a request from the Lebanese authorities. Okay, let's see who else has a question. Stéphane Vacara.
Thank you, Stéphane. About Lebanon, the fact that the special tribunal for the death of the Prime Minister Hariri, was going to have a verdict, I think, last Friday, and it was postponed. What does the Secretary General think that was, the right choice in the moment, or not? And in this, linking with the question that you just read for before, the truth, to know the truth in this moment in Lebanon, not only about Hariri, in general, is important and is healthy for the country, or there is somebody or something, some force that says that the truth for Lebanon is not good. And then allow me just a question on Mario Paciolla's in Colombia, if you have any news that you can share with us. Thank you.
So on your last question, I have no updates, I think, to what Fahan gave you last week. As a matter of principle, the truth is important. The truth is always important and should always be important, regardless of the context. So that's a pretty clear position. As far as the Hariri Tribunal, the special tribunal, that there are an independent entity, independent from the Secretary General, as tribunals should be. So I have no comment to make on the decision that they've taken regarding the verdict that was, I think, from what I understand, from press reports scheduled to be announced. Okay, Amy Lieberman. Amy, please go ahead.
Hi, Stéphane. How are you doing?
Good.
Turn my video. Good. I had a question about the WHO. I understand the Secretary General was reviewing the U.S.'s request plans to withdraw from it and the legality of that last month. Do you have any update on kind of where that stands right now?
No, I do not. That is a complicated situation, and the language that we use about a review remains valid as far as I know. If something changes, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. Evelyn, you had a question. I don't know if we could hear you. Okay, Iftikhar.
Stéphane, you
go ahead, Evelyn. Go ahead, Evelyn, and then Iftikhar. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Okay.
It's okay, Stéphane, you answered it.
Okay, Iftikhar, go ahead. Iftikhar, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. Steph, you do look well rested and fresh.
Let's hope that lasts more than a day.
Okay. Apart from devastation of a different kind in Lebanon, there are heavy rains across South Asia causing huge damages, especially in the city of Karachi, Pakistan, where more than 50 people have died after 3 days of rain in low-lying areas. Do you have any reports from South Asia?
No, I'll ask our OCHA colleagues if they have any updates on what we may be doing to support the government. Okay, Gloria, you had a question.
Yes, sir. I'm very involved in the Cameroon and those problems on the outskirts. Is there a way, when these people are attacked, or also the Congo, is there a way, do they have a way to immediately give an alert? Do they have cell phones? Do they have buzzers like they have here in the schools in case of a problem that they can press a button?
I don't know. I don't know is the short answer.
Thank you.
Don't know. Okay. Okay, unless I hear anybody see anybody wave their hands frantically, I will leave you in peace and we'll all go about our day, and I will see you I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.